Have you ever witnessed someone being dismissed because of the color of their skin? That moment when authority becomes a weapon rather than a shield? In a world where respect should be universal, some believe it's a privilege they can withhold based on appearance alone. Today's story will shake you to your core. A highly qualified black woman officer faces public humiliation from a colleague who sees her only through the lens of prejudice. His words cut deep. "I don't need help, especially not from someone who looks like you." The sting of discrimination in broad daylight, witnessed by the very community she'd sworn to protect. But justice has a way of revealing itself in the most unexpected moments. Imagine the stunned silence as this same arrogant officer learns that the woman he publicly degraded is now standing at the podium, addressing the entire precinct as their new commander. The room that once echoed with whispers of doubt now fills with the sound of chairs scraping against the floor as officers rise to their feet, some out of respect, others from the shocking realization that change has arrived. This isn't just a story about comeuppance. It's about resilience in the face of discrimination, about maintaining dignity when others try to strip it away, and about transforming a broken system from within. Before we witness Commander Amira Cole's journey from humiliation to leadership, take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to Black Narratives. Your support helps us continue sharing these powerful stories of justice and transformation that too often go untold. Now, let's discover how one woman's unwavering dignity changed an entire precinct forever. Amira Cole grew up where police sirens competed with children's laughter as the neighborhood soundtrack. The streets of her community weren't featured in city tourism brochures. Cracked sidewalks lined with determined small businesses, apartment buildings where neighbors became family by necessity. This overlooked corner of the city taught Amira early lessons about justice and its uneven application. At the heart of Amira's upbringing stood her grandmother, Eleanor, a woman whose spine remained straight despite decades of carrying invisible burdens. "Your dignity isn't negotiable," she would tell Amira while braiding her hair each morning. "It's not something others can take unless you surrender it." Eleanor had lived through segregation, witnessed the civil rights movement, and raised 3 generations with unwavering principles: education, integrity, and self-respect. Following her grandmother's wisdom, Amira transformed academic potential into achievement. Her teachers noticed her analytical mind and leadership instincts. Despite resource limitations at her high school, she graduated valedictorian, earning a criminal justice scholarship that other students assumed would be out of reach for someone from her zip code. College expanded Amira's understanding of systemic inequities. She excelled in courses examining the justice system's historical relationship with marginalized communities. While classmates debated these issues theoretically, Amira saw an opportunity for meaningful change from within. The police academy presented different challenges. Among 60 recruits, Amira was one of 4 women and the only black woman. Physical training became a spectacle where male recruits waited for her to falter. Instructors often directed harder questions her way, setting invisible hurdles higher than those her peers faced. After graduation, the challenges intensified. Senior officers accidentally excluded her from briefings. Her tactical suggestions in planning meetings went unacknowledged until repeated by male colleagues. The locker room fell silent when she entered. Despite outstanding performance reviews, promotions came slower than for peers with similar or lesser qualifications. Yet Amira persisted. Each slight strengthened her resolve rather than diminishing it. She built a reputation for de-escalating volatile situations and connecting with community members others couldn't reach. Her approach to policing reflected her grandmother's teachings, respecting human dignity first, enforcing the law second. This philosophy would eventually distinguish her career, though not before facing its greatest test. Autumn rain washed the city streets on an otherwise ordinary Thursday afternoon. Amira, dressed in civilian clothes, jeans, a navy sweater, and a light jacket, stepped into Westside Coffee, a modest establishment 3 blocks from the precinct. The shop buzzed with neighborhood regulars. The aroma of fresh coffee and pastries filled the warm air. Amira ordered her usual, black coffee, no sugar, planning to review case notes before her evening shift. The commotion outside drew her attention first, raised voices cutting through the gentle cafe ambience. Through the rain-streaked window, she spotted a young black man, barely 20, surrounded by onlookers. His hands trembled as Officer Bradley Kincaid towered over him, uniform crisp, posture rigid with unearned authority. ID, now. Kincaid's demand carried through the glass. The young man fumbled for his wallet. "I was just waiting for my friend, sir." "Sure you were," Kincaid replied, voice dripping with skepticism. "People like you don't just wait around in this neighborhood." Amira set down her coffee, badge tucked into her jacket pocket, and stepped outside. The rain immediately dotted her curls as she approached the scene with measured steps. "Is there a problem here, officer?" she asked, her tone professional but firm. Kincaid barely glanced at her. "Ma'am, please step back, police business." "I understand. I'm Officer Cole, 14th Precinct." She discreetly displayed her badge. "Perhaps I can assist?" Kincaid's expression shifted, first confusion, then dismissal. His eyes narrowed as he looked her up and down, lingering judgmentally on her casual clothes, her hair, her skin. "We don't need backup here," he scoffed, "especially not from off-duty personnel who should mind their own business." "Officer Kincaid," Amira pressed, recognizing him now, "I'm simply offering assistance in a community situation." "Listen," he cut her off, voice rising for the growing audience to hear. "I don't care what badge you're flashing. I don't need help, especially not from someone who looks like you." The words hung in the rain-heavy air. The young man's eyes widened in disbelief. Among the bystanders, an elderly woman audibly gasped. Someone muttered, "Did he really just say that?" Amira felt heat rise to her cheeks, but her grandmother's voice echoed in her mind. "Your dignity isn't negotiable." She straightened her shoulders, maintaining eye contact with Kincaid. "Officer," she said, voice steady despite the public humiliation, "I'll leave you to your duties, but remember we serve the same community." She turned to the young man. "Sir, are you all right?" "Yes, ma'am," he replied, confusion evident in his eyes. Why was she asking about his welfare when she was the one being disrespected? Kincaid smirked. "That's right. Run along now." As Amira walked away, she felt dozens of eyes on her back, community members who had witnessed a black woman officer being publicly degraded by a colleague. Her coffee grew cold on the table inside as she processed what had just happened. She left money for her untouched drink and walked back toward the precinct, dignity intact but heart heavy. The young man, Marcus Williams, would later tell friends how the incident shook his mind, already fragile trust in law enforcement. "One officer treated me like a criminal for waiting for my friend. Another tried to help and got shut down for being black. What are we supposed to believe about the system?" Have you ever witnessed someone stand their ground with quiet dignity when they had every right to react with anger? What would you have done in Amira's position? Walk away with composure or confront the discrimination directly? The 14th Precinct operated like a fortress of tradition. Photographs of former commanders, all white men, lined the main hallway. Unwritten rules governed everything from who spoke during briefings to which officers received the most desirable assignments. For decades, this hierarchy had remained undisturbed, creating invisible barriers for officers who didn't fit the established mold. By morning shift the next day, whispers of the coffee shop confrontation circulated through the department. The story traveled from dispatch to detectives, gaining embellishments with each retelling. In the break room, conversations halted when Amira entered. Some officers avoided eye contact, others offered sympathetic glances, but remained silent. A few veteran black and female officers quietly approached her throughout the day with similar stories of their own. "Kincaid's just saying what others think," one senior officer told her privately. "They tolerate us, but they don't respect us." Despite knowing the likely outcome, Amira filed a formal complaint that afternoon. She documented the incident with clinical precision: the time, location, exact words exchanged, and names of potential witnesses. The department's history with discrimination complaints was discouraging. Of 37 filed in the past 5 years, 34 had been dismissed for insufficient evidence or conflicting accounts. The remaining 3 resulted in minimal consequences, mandatory sensitivity training that most officers mocked openly. As she submitted the report, the desk sergeant barely looked up. "I'll make sure this gets to the right place," he said, placing it in a tray already stacked with papers. Amira understood the subtext. Her complaint would likely join dozens of others, buried beneath bureaucratic indifference. The precinct's culture ensured that officers who spoke out often found themselves isolated, passed over for promotions, or assigned to undesirable shifts. The message was clear: maintain the status quo or suffer the consequences. That evening, Amira called her grandmother, seeking wisdom from the woman who had weathered similar storms. "They may ignore your words on paper," Eleanor told her, "but they cannot ignore your excellence. Your presence itself challenges their system." Have you, or someone you know, ever filed a complaint about discrimination that was brushed aside? Share your experience in the comments below. Your story might help others feel less alone in their struggle for workplace respect and dignity. 3 days after the coffee shop incident, an email from headquarters landed in every department inbox. Commander Matthews has accepted a position with the State Bureau. The search for his replacement begins immediately. The message sparked immediate speculation throughout the 14th precinct. In the men's locker room, predictions flowed freely. "It'll be Captain Reynolds," declared one officer, slamming his locker shut. "He plays golf with the commissioner." "My money's on Lieutenant Hoffman," countered another. 20 years in, knows every corner of this precinct. Not once did anyone mention Amira's name, despite her exemplary record and advanced qualifications. When she entered rooms, conversations about the position would immediately shift to safer topics. Even allies seemed resigned to the inevitable continuation of the status quo. "Don't get your hopes up," whispered Officer Rivera, one of the few other women in the department. "The old guard protects their own." A week later, the rumor mill exploded. A decision had been made. The chief would announce the new commander during Monday's all-hands meeting. Throughout the weekend, text messages pinged between officers, with Reynolds and Hoffman emerging as the clear favorites. Betting pools formed, with substantial money riding on the outcome. Monday morning arrived with unusual energy. Officers who typically arrived just before shift appeared 30 minutes early. The briefing room, normally half empty during announcements, filled to capacity. People leaned against walls, crowded doorways, and perched on desks. Officer Kincaid strutted in 15 minutes late, nodding confidently to colleagues. "Heard Reynolds already picked his new lieutenant," he said loudly enough for nearby groups to hear. At precisely 8 a.m., Police Chief Garcia entered through the side door. His expression revealed nothing as he adjusted the microphone. Behind him, another door opened, but whoever entered remained obscured from view. "Before we begin today's briefing," the chief announced, "I have an important announcement regarding leadership at the 14th precinct." The room fell silent. Officers straightened their postures. Someone's radio crackled, quickly silenced. Every eye focused on the chief and the still hidden figure behind him. After careful consideration and extensive interviews, Chief Garcia continued, pausing to survey the room, "We've selected a commander who embodies the future of this department." The collective intake of breath was audible as the chief stepped aside, ready to reveal the new commander. 3 days after the coffee shop incident, an email from headquarters landed in every department inbox. "Commander Matthews has accepted a position with the State Bureau. The search for his replacement begins immediately." The message sparked immediate speculation throughout the 14th precinct. In the men's locker room, predictions flowed freely. "It'll be Captain Reynolds," declared one officer, slamming his locker shut. "He plays golf with the commissioner." "My money's on Lieutenant Hoffman," countered another. 20 years in, knows every corner of this precinct. Not once did anyone mention Amira's name, despite her exemplary record and advanced qualifications. When she entered rooms, conversations about the position would immediately shift to safer topics. Even allies seemed resigned to the inevitable continuation of the status quo. "Don't get your hopes up," whispered Officer Rivera, one of the few other women in the department. "The old guard protects their own." A week later, the rumor mill exploded. A decision had been made. The chief would announce the new commander during Monday's all-hands meeting. Throughout the weekend, text messages pinged between officers, with Reynolds and Hoffman emerging as the clear favorites. Betting pools formed, with substantial money riding on the outcome. Monday morning arrived with unusual energy. Officers who typically arrived just before shift appeared 30 minutes early. The briefing room, normally half empty during announcements, filled to capacity. People leaned against walls, crowded doorways, and perched on desks. Officer Kincaid strutted in 15 minutes late, nodding confidently to colleagues. Heard Reynolds already picked his new lieutenant, he said loudly enough for nearby groups to hear. At precisely 8 a.m., Police Chief Garcia entered through the side door. His expression revealed nothing as he adjusted the microphone. Behind him, another door opened, but whoever entered remained obscured from view. Before we begin today's briefing, the chief announced, "I have an important announcement regarding leadership at the 14th precinct." The room fell silent. Officers straightened their postures. Someone's radio crackled, quickly silenced. Every eye focused on the chief and the still hidden figure behind him. After careful consideration and extensive interviews, Chief Garcia continued, pausing to survey the room, "We've selected a commander who embodies the future of this department." The collective intake of breath was audible as the chief stepped aside, ready to reveal the new commander. Commander Cole wasted no time implementing changes at the 14th precinct. Within her first month, she established a community advisory board that included neighborhood leaders from all districts, particularly those historically underserved. The message was clear. Accountability would now extend beyond the station walls. Training protocols underwent immediate revision. Amira introduced mandatory bias awareness sessions and de-escalation workshops led by respected community advocates. Unlike previous perfunctory seminars, these included real-world scenarios and required officers to confront uncomfortable truths about policing practices. "We cannot change what we refuse to acknowledge," she told resistant officers during particularly tense discussions. Most controversially, she restructured patrol assignments, pairing veterans with newer officers across different backgrounds. The new partnerships disrupted long-standing cliques and forced collaboration between officers who had previously avoided working together. For Officer Kincaid, the reckoning came not as public humiliation, but as a private meeting in Amira's office. He entered defensively, shoulders tight, expecting retaliation. "Officer Kincaid," she began, motioning him to sit, "I've reviewed your file. Your tactical skills are exceptional, but your community engagement metrics are concerning." He shifted uncomfortably, avoiding her gaze. "I could transfer you," she continued, "but that wouldn't solve the underlying issue. Instead, you'll partner with Officer Washington on community outreach in the 4th District for the next 3 months." "That's where you grew up," he said, recognition flashing across his face. "Yes, the same community where you told me my help wasn't needed because of how I look." Her words were direct but delivered without malice. "You'll report directly to me weekly on what you're learning." The change in departmental culture emerged gradually. Initially, officers performed the bare minimum to comply with new directives. But as weeks passed, subtle shifts appeared. Morning briefings grew more collaborative. Officers from different backgrounds began sharing meals in the break room. Incident reports included more nuanced descriptions of civilian interactions. In the 4th District, residents noticed the difference. Community meetings that once drew angry crowds now featured constructive dialogue. When a young black teenager was stopped for questioning, the officers explained their reasons respectfully and released him with no escalation, a stark contrast to previous encounters. 3 months into Amira's command, an elderly woman approached the precinct front desk. The desk sergeant recognized her from the coffee shop incident. "I need to speak with Commander Cole," she insisted. In Amira's office, the woman clasped her hands tightly. "I've lived in this neighborhood 43 years, she began. "Never thought I'd willingly walk into this building. But your officers helped my grandson last week when his car broke down. They didn't question why he was driving in this area. They just helped him." Word of the 14th Precinct's transformation spread throughout the department. Other commanders began requesting copies of Amira's training protocols. The police academy invited her to speak to new recruits about ethical leadership. Most significantly, officers from minority backgrounds across the city witnessed Amira's success with hope. Applications from diverse candidates increased by 30% at the next recruitment drive. Even Officer Kincaid evolved, though not without struggle. His weekly reports shifted from defensive justifications to thoughtful reflections. After his 3-month assignment, he requested to continue the community work, a request Amira granted with a knowing nod. 1 year after Amira Cole assumed command, the 14th Precinct had transformed from a symbol of outdated policing to a model of community-centered justice. Her story reveals a profound truth. Dignity maintained in the face of discrimination becomes a powerful catalyst for change. When Officer Kincaid publicly humiliated Amira, he couldn't have known he was addressing his future commander. Yet even if she had remained just another officer, her composure and professionalism in that moment exemplified the leadership qualities that eventually elevated her to command. Representation matters. Each time Amira sat at the commander's desk, she dismantled assumptions about who belongs in positions of power. Each policy she implemented proved that different perspectives strengthen institutions rather than weaken them. Her presence alone opened doors for others who had been told, directly or indirectly, that their faces didn't belong in leadership. Most importantly, Amira's approach to reform emphasized accountability without vengeance. She could have transferred Kincaid or publicly exposed his behavior. Instead, she chose education over humiliation, transformation over punishment. This wasn't weakness. It was strategic leadership that recognized changing hearts and minds requires both firmness and compassion. When discrimination appears before us, we face a choice: remain silent witnesses or become active participants in change. What would you do if you witnessed someone being dismissed because of their identity? Would you stand up, speak out, or walk away? If Amira's story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to Black Narratives. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that dignity persists, even when respect is withheld. Drop a comment about a time you witnessed someone standing tall against discrimination. Your story might inspire others to do the same.